Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Battle Stadium singles video here on iStarly TV. Today we're continuing my Road to Master series where I try to climb the online ranked Battle Stadium singles ladder. Today I have a brand new team. Now this is the second time recording this. I did all of this gameplay already and recorded the video, and then come to find that the video saved, however my audio did not. So all of that was wasted, but I mean, I'm still using the footage, so basically this is going to be me post-commentating my battles, so hopefully that's fine. It's a little different than I normally do it, but it should still be okay. So anyways, I kind of already know the outcome of all these battles, but anyways, let's talk about the team. You'll probably notice right away, number 5 on the team is Flapple. So Flapple is one of my favorite Pokemon in Sword and Shield, but really just in general, it's become one of my favorites of all time, honestly. Flapple and Appleton. It's funny because when Sword and Shield came out, I kind of went back and forth between Flapple and Appleton being my favorite Gen 8 Pokemon. Anyways, I love these Pokemon. I caught a shiny Applin in Scarlet and Violet, and I just had to use it in Battle Stadium singles. I wanted to use Flapple because I like it better, although if I'm being completely honest, I think between the two, between Flapple and Appleton, I actually would guess that Appleton's better in Battle Stadium singles because it has thick fat, and with Terastallizing, it can just be a decent defensive Pokemon with access to like Leech Seed and stuff like that. So I thought Appleton might be a little bit better, but I had already EV trained my shiny Applin with Attack, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to commit to using Flapple. So what Flapple has going for it, to be quite honest, it's a tough one to use. It's a tough one to use in singles. Basically, it has Grav Apple, which is a pretty good signature move. It's base 80 physical attack that lowers the lowers the opponent's defense. So basically, if you keep spamming Grav Apple, you keep doing more and more damage. So that's pretty good. The downside is Flapple's highest stat is its attack, which is base 110, which is admittedly not very good. So with that being its highest stat, unfortunately, that just means the rest of its stats are going to be pretty lackluster, which ends up happening here. It does have access to Dragon Dance to boost that attack stat, which is nice, and it's middling speed. And I just gave it a Tera Fire type for offensive and defensive purposes. I felt like it just kind of balanced the offense and defense because it's weak to Fairy, it's weak to Ice, and Fire resists both of those, so it's a nice little change up there. And then also giving it a Fire-type stab move helps cover a lot of common switch-ins to it. And then we have Sucker Punch just because it's Sucker Punch. You know, we have access to Sucker Punch, so I feel like we might as well use it. And unfortunately, Flapple's move pool is not very deep, and I didn't want to run Outrage because I didn't want to lock myself into that. With abilities here, Flapple does have access to Hustle as a hidden ability, which is a pretty interesting ability. It's funny because Hustle was actually really good in Sword and Shield because when you Dynamax, you keep the Hustle attack boost, but your moves are always 100% accurate, so it ignores that aspect of Hustle. In this case though, Hustle will still lower my accuracy, so I didn't really want to use it because I didn't want to miss. I mean, I'm already using a Pokemon that's really gimmicky, so I didn't want to add to the gimmick by having a chance to miss my moves. Ripen is still a pretty decent ability though. What it does is when I eat a berry, it doubles the effects of that berry. So basically with Citrus Berry, instead of recovering a quarter of my health, I will recover half of my health. So that's pretty good, and it's actually been pretty clutch on Flapple, I've found. So, and Ripen is an ability that's exclusive to the Applin line. So anyways, that's Flapple for you. I love it. The rest of the Pokemon on the team, I kind of wanted to use Pokemon that can kind of complement or support Flapple decently. Of course, the first one you'll notice, or the first one that I want to talk about here, I'm going to try to get through these a little quickly, is Espathra. So Espathra has been a great Pokemon that, like, it's just been great for me. And I like this build a lot with Lumina Crash, just kind of being offensive, but also having Baton Pass. So you're kind of putting pressure on the opponent with Lumina Crash, and then if all else fails, you can just Baton Pass those speed boosts away to something else. I have the Ganlon Berry, so if I get low enough in HP, it'll boost my defense, which I can also pass to other Pokemon. And then I have Calm Mind, of course, which will help me deal more damage with Lumina Crash, but I can also pass those boosts to my other Pokemon. From there, the rest of the Pokemon are honestly just Pokemon that I found to be pretty good with Espathra, and they do decently complement Flapple as well. They don't really need too much explanation though, because they're pretty good Pokemon. So right there on the right-hand column, we have Baxcalibur, pretty standard Dragon Dance set. We have max HP, max special defense Annihilape with a Tera Fire type, which I think is Annihilape's most common Tera type right now. It gives it immunity to Will-O-Wisp and then also turns its weakness of Fairy into a resistance. And then finally we have Iron Moth. This Iron Moth though is max special attack, max speed with the booster energy, so we are getting that special attack boost when we go in with the booster energy. Finally, the last Pokemon, which is the first Pokemon listed, is Iron Bundle. Pretty standard set. I mean, it's max special attack, max speed. However, I'm running Substitute and Encore, which I found to be really clutch. It allows me to kind of, since Iron Bundle is one of the fastest Pokemon in the meta, it's actually the second fastest Pokemon that's commonly used in the meta, second only to Dragapult. And Dragapult's not even that common anymore, but Iron Bundle's just really fast. It's one of the fastest things out there, and often it's going to be the fastest thing out there. So being able to sub and scout what the opponent's going to do, and if they go for like a Stealth Rock or Swords Dance or something, you can just Encore them right into that, and you're free to just kind of go for the rest of your moves or switch into something else. So this team has been doing really well for me, and I like I said, I really wanted to use Flapple. Basically, the team was built around Flapple. I just thought to myself, what's the best way to use Flapple? I'm not sure this is the best way, and honestly, I might try a Hustle build at some point as well. I really wanted to try Hustle Terra Dark with Sucker Punch with Choice Band, but I don't know, that's super gimmicky, but maybe I'll try it in the future at some point. But that's the team. There's the team code for you in case you want to try it out yourself. Let me know what you think of it. Also, if you do, let me know if you have any thoughts about using Flapple. Like, do you have any suggestions for making it better? As for the EVs in Flapple, by the way, it's max attack, Adamant Nature, and then a lot of HP investment, and then some speed investment as well to kind of complement the boost from Dragon Dance, but also the boosts that Espathra can pass to it. Let's get to the games. All right, game number 1 here, looking at the opponent's team. I don't remember what my thought process exactly was here, but they have some interesting Pokemon. They have Clodsire, which is kind of my arch nemesis. That's a Pokemon that I really, really don't like. But I do have the Espathra. Now, to spoil it a little bit, my opponent does not end up bringing that Clodsire. I think Espathra successfully kind of like scares Clodsire away because I have the super effective Psychic moves, and I can just continuously lower their special defense with Lumina Crash. Now, I do end up bringing Flapple here because it actually looks pretty good here, and that's my thought process with the team. Honestly, in this video, I will say, Flapple looked like it had decent matchups in most of the teams. So I'm not saying it's in a good spot in the metagame, but it does have decent matchups against some common Pokemon, and of course with that Tera Fire type, it helps a lot. Now, the interesting thing with Flapple versus Rotom is, of course, I'm a Grass type, which is kind of like Rotom's arch nemesis. However, of course, Rotom typically goes Tera Fairy, and so the funny thing is, as a Grass type, before I Terrasilize, I can resist all of Rotom's moves. However, if they do Terrasilize, then I'm kind of forced to Terrasilize into a Fire type to resist Fairy. And if I do that, then I'm weak to Rotom's Water moves. So anyways, it's kind of like a prediction game in that case, as Terrasilizing typically is. And in general, Flapple just seemed really good here. And of course, they do have Baxcalibur, but if they're going to go for the Ice type move, I can Tera Fire here. And so I ended up bringing Espathra as a lead because Espathra did look pretty good as a lead. It has a pretty good matchup against all of their Pokemon except for that King Gambit, of course. That's the big downside to Espathra, is that it's really weak to dark types because they can easily switch into the Lumina Crash. And then I did bring Flapple because, of course, and then I brought Annihilape as well, just because it also seemed like it could help deal with the Pokemon that give Espathra and Flapple trouble. It was looking decent against Baxcalibur and also really good against King Gambit. So my opponent leads with Rotom here. I just go for Protect just to scout what they're going to do, just to see if there's a chance that I can reveal whether they're choiced or not. And it does end up being the case. They go for Trick here on turn 1. So that ends up being a good play for me, and that's why I like running Protect on my Speed Boost Espathra, because it gives me a guaranteed speed boost, and it lets me scout for the opponent. Then I just go for the Lumina Crash here, and it does half to their health, so that's great, meaning the second one is going to knock them out. They go for the Trick again, because I guess at that point they have to, because they're locked into it, and they do have Choice Scarf rather than Choice Specs. I was hoping they'd have Choice Specs, because that would mean I would hit a lot harder, but they do end up having Choice Scarf, and I mean, Espathra doesn't really need a Choice Scarf because it has Speed Boost, obviously. I just go for the Lumina Crash again, expecting them to go into King Gambit if they brought it, and of course, lo and behold, that is exactly what happens. Now, I used to run Dazzling Gleam on my Espathra set in place of Calm Mind, but I just really like Calm Mind. Dazzling Gleam would help me. I mean, obviously it wouldn't do that much damage to Kingambit, but it would at least get some damage on it. I think that's typically why Espathra runs Tera Fighting to deal with Kingambit with Tera Blast. But I don't like doing that. I would just rather run, you know, Protect, Baton Pass, and Calm Mind, and then of course you have to run Lumina Crash. So here I'm making a decision on what to go into in the face of this Kingambit. I felt like I was in a really bad position here because of the fact that, I mean, none of my Pokemon want to switch into Kingambit, and my Espathra has to switch out. There's absolutely nothing I can do because I'm locked into Lumina Crash because of that Choice Scarf. So I do end up going into Annihilape here, figuring, you know, whatever they go for, if they go for like Koto Cleave, then I'll probably not take it super well, but at least take it, and then I can threaten them with the Drain Punch. Luckily for me, though, they go for the Guillotine, though, which honestly I think was not a great play on my opponent's part. I mean, you know, it's kind of like I went for the Lumina Crash kind of figuring they were going to bring in Kingambit. They went for the Guillotine, maybe figuring I was going to bring in Annihilape, but maybe they still went for it anyway. They go for Metal Burst here, just kind of, I guess, expecting me to attack them. I guess they thought that they would live a Drain Punch. Maybe they will. Maybe they're super invested in bulk or something, or maybe they have like Focus Sash. But anyways, I set up a couple bulk ups. I didn't want to get too greedy. I mean, setting up 2 bulk ups is pretty greedy, but I didn't want to get like super greedy and go beyond that. I kind of at this point suspected that they had Focus Sash, but anyways, I'm just gonna go for Drain Punch now. Like I said, I don't want to get too greedy. I don't want to, you know, try my luck and set up like 6 bulk ups, especially figuring that there's a chance that they might have Focus Sash. So here I just go for a Drain Punch, see what happens. Of course, they are Focus Sash, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I guess that makes sense that they're running Metal Burst on their Focus Sash Kingambit, but typically Focus Sash is not an item you see on Kingambit just because it's so bulky in general that, like, yeah, it's so bulky that it can usually take hits from everything except for fighting types. And with Terastallizing, you can still kind of counteract that weakness. So, you know, it's kind of a weird item on Kingambit, but it ended up working out really well for my opponent because they are going to be able to knock me out with the Metal Burst after I almost killed them with that Drain Punch. Now I'm going into Flapple, and I actually feel pretty safe here, if I'm being honest. Luckily, I did not burn, no pun intended, the Tera on my Annihilape, so that gives me the option to Tera here. And I do Terastallize just thinking there's a chance that they're going to go for the Iron Head. And I do get off a Dragon Dance because I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know they have Iron Head, I know they have Metal Burst, I know they have Guillotine. I just have to live a Guillotine, basically. If they go Iron Head, I'm happy about that. They probably have Sucker Punch. I think that was my guess at their last move because Sucker Punch is like a great move to have on Kingambit. But either way, I felt like I was in a decently fine position just going for a Dragon Dance there in the face of that Kingambit. My opponent is actually scared off by my Flapple, which is something you never expect to say, right? Or that's a phrase I've never said in my life, right? But look how awesome it looks. I love this thing. It's so cool. Of course, if you notice when I sent it out, it said Flapple the Gourmet. I had to get that gourmet mark on it just because, personally, I love marks. I love having the little title when you send out your Pokemon. So that's something that, of course, I wanted to invest in this Pokemon that I love. Anyways, with that being said, now I'm free to just go Grav Apple. I'm just thinking back, I don't think my opponent has Terastallized yet, right? So there's a chance they could Tera. That's why I was thinking right there. I was like, okay, oh no, what I was actually thinking about is I don't have that much speed investment. I am at +1 speed, but I was thinking to myself, is there a chance that Rotom's faster than me, right? And so that's where I was kind of regretting Terastallizing previously, because now they know I'm a fire type, so they could easily just click Hydro Pump, but it doesn't end up mattering. I end up just outspeeding them. I kind of thought to myself, okay, I'm probably gonna be faster, so I'm just gonna go for the Grav Apple, see what happens. I'm kind of playing from behind at this point, so I think I kind of in some ways have to play a little bit riskier if I want to have a chance of winning this game. My opponent does then go into their Mimikyu, which I did think was going to be, well, that is unfortunate, right? However, what I felt like was a good thing for me is that I am a fire type now, so that I resist their play roughs. And I figured with Swords Dance, or sorry, without them having gone for Swords Dance yet, I feel like I should be able to take like a Ghost type move as well. So I go for the Grav Apple, break their disguise, and see what they go for. They end up going for Drain Punch, which luckily for me does not do all that much damage. And because of my Dragon Dance, I felt confident that I was faster than them here as well. So basically my worst case scenario was them going for Shadow Sneak and getting off a lot of damage on me. And so I was kind of scared here. I was like, okay, they're Terastallizing, and I'm like, okay, what could it be? Is it Tera Fire? you know, because that's something I've seen before. I've actually run a team with a Tera Fire Mimikyu. They are Tera Ghost though, which is definitely scary, of course, because of the Shadow Sneak. Now it's funny because had I gone for Sucker Punch, you know, that probably wouldn't have mattered to me. Like I probably should have thought about going for Sucker Punch. They do go Shadow Sneak here and I was terrified, but Flapple is so clutch. That HP investment ends up really helping me out here because I do survive that Tera Ghost boosted Shadow Sneak. And that does mean, of course, that I'm going to be able to, well, I get the Citrus Berry. As you can see, it recovers half of my health. And then I'm going to be able to knock them out with that Grav Apple. Grav Apple is such an awesome move, by the way. It looks really cool as well. And then they go into King Gambit. And here's another moment where I was thinking to myself, what do I do? I'm thinking I'm probably just going to Sucker Punch, because if I go for like Grav Apple and they go for Sucker Punch, I might be dead. So I thought I'd go for Sucker Punch thinking, I was thinking to myself, does Sucker Punch count Metal Burst or Guillotine? It ends up not mattering, or I don't know what they went for, but whatever they went for, my Sucker Punch ends up landing and I end up getting the win here. So the first game of the series is a Flapple sweep. So of course I couldn't be happier. I remember saying when I was recording it, I remember saying like, okay, if I could lose every battle from here on out, and I would be really happy because I just got a sweep with Flapple. So that made me really happy, and it's fun to see that pay off. So good stuff. And let's see what the second one holds. All right, game number 2. My opponent's team is really interesting here. Notably, they have Sandy Shocks, which is a Pokemon you just do not see very often at all. All the other Pokemon all the other Pokemon on their team, though, are very common and very strong. So I definitely was aware of that. They have King Gambit again, and I was thinking, should I lead with Iron Bundle or should I lead with Espathra? Because those are kind of my 2 lead options. Espathra looked great against this team, except for that King Gambit, of course, and so I kind of wondered, I kind of felt like it was pretty likely they were going to bring it again, even though I do have the Annihilape to scare it away. I also have the Iron Moth to scare it away. And of course, they also have a couple other threatening Pokemon that are pretty good for my team. Like, again, the question is, what about Flapple, right? And looking at their team, Flapple did look really good. It actually has the potential to defeat every single one of my opponent's Pokemon, except every single one of my opponent's Pokemon also has a chance to beat it with stuff like Terastallizing and stuff like that, of course. So, you know, depending on how the battle played out, you know, Flapple could either be really good or really bad here, but I did end up bringing it again. I ended up bringing the same 3 Pokemon, Espathra, Annihilape, and Flapple, because, I mean, I guess they're a pretty good core, and I felt like, again, the Pokemon that would give Espathra and Flapple trouble, Annihilape can handle them, and the Pokemon that Annihilape can handle. Like, I guess one other Pokemon that was another threat, well, another scary one, was going to be that Fluttermane, because it's just so fast. So even if Flapple's capable of getting up some boosts, Fluttermane could actually give my team a lot of trouble. So that's something I should have thought of. I really considered bringing the Iron Moth, but I mean, as you can see, I didn't bring it, so we'll see what happens here, right? My opponent leads Sandy Shocks, which I thought was okay. They do go Volt Switch. I think Sandy Shocks has a pretty decent speed stat. I think it's over 100, so because I'm not invested in speed, well, actually, even if I were, no, never mind. I was gonna say, even if I were invested in speed, they'd still be faster, but that's not true. But anyways, I'm not max speed, so they are faster. Lets me get off a Lumina Crash though, but the Scizor is what comes in. And I thought that this is an okay situation because they took some okay damage from that Lumina Crash, and I know that the next one is going to do even more damage because I dropped their special defense. But Scizor is pretty good. It's pretty bulky. Of course, it's going to have Bullet Punch. They might even just go for a bug type move, and I didn't want to burn my Tera right away here, especially given that Espathra has already taken so much damage and it's so close to just getting knocked out. So I just stay and go for Lumina Crash again, and they do knock me out with Bullet Punch. Another big moment here, or another big consideration here, was the fact that I did not want to switch in either of my other 2 Pokemon to take the forthcoming Bullet Punch or even a bug type move, because I felt like it would just do too much damage for these Pokemon to kind of come back from. So I stayed in, went for Lumina Crash again, thinking there's maybe a chance either I live the Bullet Punch or that they just don't go for it, and it ends up, you know, they end up knocking me out, which is unfortunate, but like I said, that's kind of what I felt like was the best play in that moment. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and Dragon Dance. I think I Tera again, right? Honestly, I missed that. I was looking at something else on the screen, but I think I Tera again. Either way, I know that I clicked Dragon Dance. And I mean, I just, you know, in retrospect, honestly, I guess in some ways I thought that there was a chance that they would be switching out here, but at the same time, I don't know, like Scizor is a good Pokemon, but either way, I clicked Dragon Dance for whatever reason. My opponent ends up going to Flutter Mane. I remember thinking, I was scared and I was like holding my breath, seeing what the booster energy was going to boost, because if it boosted their special attack, I think I would be pretty much dead for sure. The fact that it boosted their speed made me feel a little relieved, because they're already faster than Flapple no matter what, even after +1 with Dragon Dance. So it kind of doesn't matter that they get a speed boost. It's kind of almost like they didn't boost any of their stats, because they were always going to be faster than me no matter what. So that made me a little relieved. And I do Terrasilize there, as we see. And here I go for the Sucker Punch. I thought about going for Grav Apple, but this is a situation where me having Terrasilized, I mean, it made sense against Scizor, so it's kind of like I would have done that anyway. But if I had not Terrasilized there and they had gone into Flutter Mane, I think I could have beaten them, because they would have gone probably Moonblast, and then I would have Terrasilized and they wouldn't have expected me to be a fire type, and I would resist it, and then, you know, I'd be able to knock them out. But anyways, they end up going for Power Gem, which is surprising, but I do live that. So Flapple's bulk has really helped. That bulk investment, that's 2 times in a row that it ended up mattering. I am able to knock them out with 2 Sucker Punches though, which is amazing. Obviously, if I had gone for Grav Apple that first time, I would have knocked them out cleanly, so I wouldn't have to have worried, but it doesn't matter because Sucker Punch was priority. So anyways, I knock out a Flutter Mane, right? So Flapple's on a roll in this video so far, and now here they go into their Sandy Shocks, and here I was like, okay, obviously Grav Apple is the right play because this is a ground type, but my opponent has yet to Terrasilize, so I wondered if there would be a chance. Also, you know what, I was kind of expecting them to be faster than me as well, because like I said, Sandy Shocks actually has decent speed, and my Flapple in general does not have good speed, and even at +1, since I'm an Adamant nature, I am a little bit slow, so I went for the Sucker Punch here. I guess we'll never know whether I would have outsped them or not. I don't think I would have though, so I get off some okay damage with Sucker Punch, and they're going to knock me out with that stab Earth Power. So unfortunately, Flapple's not sweeping this game, but it did knock out a Flutter Mane, which I'll count that for something, and it got off a little bit of damage on this Pokemon, so I was kind of happy with that. That's going to let me go into Annihilape and just go for the, I think I go for the bulk up here, because I know, I mean, I'm special defensive invested, however you want to say it. And I know I can take a hit from this thing no matter what, because Sandy Shocks is not the strongest special attacker. And they go for Earth Power, and I do have the Covert Cloak, which means that I am not going to ever get the special defense drop, so that makes me feel a little safe as well. Here I'm just going to go for the Drain Punch, just hoping to get back a good amount of recovery and hopefully deal a lot of damage to Sandy Shocks. Although, off the top of my head, I'm not certain, but I do think Sandy Shocks has like decent defense as well, so I kind of figured this wouldn't kill, and unfortunately it does not. So, and unfortunately, furthermore, it does not recover that much health, so I know I'm going to be taking another Earth Power. It's going to do a lot of damage, and at this point I was thinking to myself, okay, I just actually don't think I can take on a Scizor with as low of health as I am. And, you know, I think the fact that I Terrastalized with Flapple, the funny thing is, you know, if I were to do it again, Terrastalizing into a fire type against Scizor with Bullet Punch makes sense, right? And it helped me against that. It would have helped me. I would have Terrastalized against the Flutter Mane as well. But basically my point here is my point here is if I had my Terrastilize here, I could have won this game, because I could have Terrastalized into a fire type with my Annihilape, taken a Bullet Punch, and then knocked them out. However, I mean, you know, who knows? Well, I guess I was at plus 1 or +2 defense as well, right? They actually end up Terrastalizing into a Steel type. I'm assuming they're Choice Banded, but either way, Terra Steel type with Technician, with that Bullet Punch, Stab with 130 base attack. You know, I didn't expect to survive this at all, even though I was like, maybe there's a chance since I have some defense boosts, but yeah, I don't take that at all. So my opponent ends up finishing the game. I think they played that really well. I actually admire how they played that with their Scizor at the end. Like I don't know if they were guessing that I was Tera Fire with Flapple, but either way they switched out, preserving their Scizor, and that ended up being the right play for them. They ended up winning the game because of that. So still a good game. I still enjoyed it. I still had a lot of fun. I still got to show off Flapple. You know, it wasn't dead weight, so that's great. And Annihilape's still also just an awesome Pokemon. So that was a fun one. Let's go to game 3. Alright, so looking at the team here, my opponent has some scary Pokemon as well. They have Glimmora, which I've always found to be annoying. They have Fluttermane, who is a huge threat. And to be honest, looking at my team again, I mean, I do have Iron Moth, which is pretty decent against Fluttermane. I think that's why you've been seeing Fluttermane's running stuff like Psyshock and Power Gem to deal with Iron Moth. But it's a scary Pokemon. They also have Volcarona, which does not see much play anymore, given that Iron Moth is really good, but Volcarona is still a really good threat. It can be really bulky, and having access to Quiver Dance as well as some recovery is pretty huge. So, you know, the fact that I see Volcarona on their team does still make me scared. Gengar is an interesting one. You don't really see that often, but then they also do have that Dragonite, which, you know, this was a game where I was considering bringing Baxcalibur, because Baxcalibur is pretty solid against Dragonite. You know, Dragonite's one of the best Pokemon in the meta, and Baxcalibur has quickly risen to being one of the best Pokemon in the meta. I mean, because it's a good Pokemon overall, but also because I think it has a really good matchup against Dragonite. So I definitely locked in Espathra here because, you know, unlike the previous two battles, Espathra seems good here, but also they don't really have a Pokemon that's like great against Espathra, right? They don't have a Kingambit, they don't have a Scizor. I mean, they don't have anything that resists Lumina Crash, so actually my opponent's team is very weak to Lumina Crash, so I kind of felt like that was the play I wanted to go for, leading Espathra once again. And then I ended up bringing the two other sweepers, two Pokemon that haven't really had a chance to shine in this video, although they've had tons of chances to shine in the format as a whole because they're amazing, Baxcalibur and Iron Moth. But my thought process here is, you know, as with the reasoning I built this team, I can lead with Espathra, you know, probably get off a lot of damage with Lumina Crash, and then when I'm about to die, or if my opponent goes for something that I can't really handle, I can just go ahead and Baton pass those boosts to one of these other fearsome sweepers, both of which have really good defensive and offensive types. My opponent leads with their Rotom, and it's a mirror of the first game, so I end up just protecting again for the same reasons that I protected in the previous game. I know that my Espathra has some bulk investment, and I know that I can probably live just about any hit from them, I guess maybe unless they're choice specs, but I still just wanted to do this just to scout, and then now I'm basically guaranteed to outspeed them. I guess unless they're Timid Scarf, which is not something you see very often with Rotom. And my thought process as well was like, if they are Timid Scarf, they're not going to do that much damage to me, so I can probably get up a Calm Mind after that. So knowing that they just went Hydro Pump, I'm just going to Calm Mind here. I know that's a little greedy, but of course Hydro Pump has a chance to miss, and also if they're choice specs, I felt like I should probably live this, you know, even, live it pretty well, and I do. And that means if I go for Calm Mind again, then I can live the second one. So I felt like I was in a pretty comfortable position now. But I was just kind of taking a look at what else I had, just kind of looking ahead in the battle just to kind of try to plan accordingly just in case things go wrong. But right now things were looking pretty solid for me. I think I end up deciding to Lumina Crash here. Let's see. By the way, my opponent's wearing makeup, which you don't really see. I didn't know you could wear makeup in this game. I do end up going Lumina Crash because I thought if I go for Calm Mind and they hit me with a Hydro Pump again, I will live, but then the next Hydro Pump will kill me. So I just wanted to get as aggressive as possible. And actually reveal my opponent is holding a Citrus Berry, which is pretty good, good to know, definitely, because it means that they're not going to be hitting me quite as hard. And there my opponent goes for the Discharge, which actually does a decent amount. That actually makes me think that the Hydro Pump might have killed if they had gone for that. Either way, they are going to proc that Ganlon Berry, and I'm now threatening to knock them out with the Lumina Crash, although I wasn't certain that I would. I think I would, but I was looking at which of these two Pokemon I might want to Baton pass these boosts to, so I can, you know, take a hit from Rotom and stuff. I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna probably go into Moth. Like, basically, I was looking at those two Pokemon and thinking, what if they go Discharge again and paralyze me, right? So I didn't want to take that risk, because if I could Baton pass a +1 defense, +1 special attack, and +1 special defense, as well as like +2 speed to either of those two Pokemon, like, it's pretty much game over, because those Pokemon are monsters by themselves, Baxcalibur and Iron Moth, but with all those boosts, they are just insanely strong, right? So I wanted to pass that, but like I said, I didn't want to risk the paralysis because my opponent's Rotom was going for the Discharge. Now they go into Fluttermane, and I know I'm probably not going to knock them out with a Lumina Crash, so I felt like this was the moment that I would Baton pass, and I considered Terastallizing as well, but it just doesn't make any sense, right? Since I'm about to Baton Pass. So I felt like Baton Passing into Iron Moth was the best play here because, like I said, Iron Moth has a really good matchup against Flutter Mane anyway. Unless Flutter Mane is running Power Gem or Psyshock or Psychic, its other moves, we take them really well. Like, we take a Shadow Ball neutrally, but Iron Moth has really high special defense, and then also we 4 times resist Moonblast. So my opponent does go Shadow Ball, which makes sense because I had Espathra in, and it does a decent amount of damage, but of course, as you can see, we do live that really well, and right there you can see all of those boosts. So this Pokemon is an absolute terror for the Flutter Mane. But here I was deciding what to do. I ended up settling on Sludge Wave because it's more powerful, but also has a chance to poison them. So for example, if I go Sludge Wave and take him down to a Sash or take him really low, there's a chance I would poison them and that would knock them out. I considered Terastallizing as well, thinking they might have Power Gem or Psychic, but luckily for me, they don't, right? So I didn't Terastallize there. That was a little bit of an iffy play on my part. I also didn't want to commit the Tera this early in the battle, even though at this point, I probably should have, given that my Iron Moth has so many boosts. But now that I know, they actually have Thunderbolt, which is funny because if I had Terastallized, I would have taken that a lot better. But here I just go for the Fiery Dance, given that one more hit from anything will knock them out. They do end up switching into Glimmora, which is typically a Pokemon I don't like to see, but now I'm just going to get off the Fiery Dance on it, which it does resist, and I do get that special attack boost, which means that this Discharge is probably going to knock them out because they resisted Fiery Dance. I remember here I was saying to myself, okay, Fiery Dance is 60 base power after factoring in Stab and the resistance, and Discharge, of course, is 80 base power straight up. So I thought that the Discharge would knock them out here because, yeah, it looked like it would do a little bit more damage in general, and then, of course, because I got these special attack boosts from Fiery Dance, it means that, yeah, I'm going to. So, yeah, Iron Moth is just straight up on a roll here, and they do go back into that Flutter Mane, which, as we know, I know I'm faster than it, and I mean, they're so low on health, I could literally click any of my moves here, and it would be GG for that Flutter Mane. So that is game here, and that just shows, you know, again, I built the team based around Flapple. I wanted to be able to optimize Flapple to the best of its abilities, but it still has this kind of plan B option, which is still just a really good option in the meta, which is use good Pokemon, right? You passing those boosts with Espathra, I've just been loving that. I've been building so many different teams with Espathra, and they just work so well. I think it's honestly becoming one of my favorite Pokemon to use. It's really ugly, Espathra, but it's just so good when it can, again, threaten with Lumina Crash, it can set up, and then it can Baton Pass. It just can do so many different things, which is pretty awesome. And then when you Baton Pass to something like, again, Iron Moth or Baxcalibur or Flutter Mane, etc., those things are just even more powerful and even scarier than they've ever been. So here I was just going to pull up the team again, but really that's it. That's the team. Those are the games. And I have a question for everyone as well. First of all, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please do leave a like and subscribe for more Pokemon Scarlet and Violet content. We have the Decidueye 7-star raids coming up, which is really exciting. Hopefully Pokemon Home compatibility somewhat soon. I'm looking forward to that. But I also wanted to ask a question because I really like this team and I'd be happy to use it again. In my next Battle Stadium singles video, would you like to see a new team, or would it be okay if I just show off this team again? I'm thinking of maybe running it back for one more video, but if everyone would just prefer to see new teams, then I can understand that and I'll just go ahead and do that as well. But I'm open to the feedback, so please let me know in the comments. I really appreciate your feedback. And also, of course, we have a couple more weeks until this series ends, which means come April, we will be able to use the Ruin Legends in the Battle Stadium single. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to start building those and trying them out, and hopefully, you know, they'll be, I mean, they all look really strong, so that's going to change the meta a lot. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.